A warm welcome to you and many thanks for joining us on the program. I am Folashade Ogurinde. In recent weeks, Nigeria has been hit with an energy crisis. First, it was the adulteration of millions of liters of petrol, which led to scarcity and hike in price. Just when we thought we had escaped this, the price of diesel more than doubled owing to an increase in cost of imports, no thanks to the rise in global oil price. Not to forget that the aviation sector was also affected, with jet A1 fuel rising to as high as 650 naira per litre. Now, the power sector has been struck with two national grid collapses in 2 days. The Minister of Power, Abubakar Aliyu, has blamed the reoccurring grid collapse and pipeline vandalization, inadequate gas supply, among others, as causes of the reoccurring nationwide blackout. Joining me to discuss this further is Chukwu Eloka Ume, energy expert. Thank you very much for joining us. This is, of course, a national problem. How bad is the situation really?
I mean, for us to know how bad this is, you need to talk to the average Nigerian. And we're talking about Nigerians who already are dealing with the high cost of petrol, the high cost of food, the increasing cost of dollar. Okay, these are the people that we should be asking this question. And when you speak to them, they'll tell you this is no more sustainable. People's salaries are still the same, but they're asked to pay for power that they don't receive. They're asked to pay more, much more for diesel. Okay, and if you think about the people that run small businesses or even medium and large businesses, some of them run on 24/7 diesel generators. How are they expected to compete with people that import goods into the country? Something as simple as toothpicks. We export timber from Nigeria, but we import toothpicks. If you try to make toothpicks in Nigeria using diesel generators, you cannot compete with someone bringing it in from China or any other country. That's how bad the situation really is. And people today will tell you around the country, in some places, they haven't received electricity for over a day. Those that receive, it's very intermittent. So this is the situation we're really dealing with in Nigeria today.
Now let's talk about the frequency of the grid collapse. Data shows that Nigeria witnessed 146 total collapses of the national grid and 73 partial collapses between the period. What do you think can be done to avoid this vicious circle?
I mean, this vicious cycle is going to continue to happen until we get serious about really overhauling the power sector. You know, we started it off right at the beginning of the decade, last decade. And unbundling the sector was the right thing to do. Putting it in the private hands was the right thing to do. However, we have not completed that unbundling, and it's seen many, many changes over the past decade. We need to put all the infrastructure in the hands of the private sector. Let them drive Genco, let them drive distribution, let them take over TCN. The market operator, system operator, let private companies run this, because if they run this as a business, as a pure business, they will make sure that the commodity gets in the hands of the people, of the customers, so that the customers can pay. I mean, every company wants to make a profit, and you can't make a profit if you don't sell your commodity. Commodity in this case is electricity. It's that simple.
But we're not going to see the same situation as we've seen in the deregulation of diesel, where we've seen a hike in price, all because global oil price increased. Can we make such comparison in this case?
You know, the hike in diesel cost is due to several things. It's not just the high price of oil in the global market. You know, think about this. We don't have what I call energy independence or energy security in this country. There's a war going on now in Ukraine, and so it affects the price of the product that we import. We produce oil, we ship it out. We refine, someone else refines them, we buy at whatever price they're selling it to. Why can't we do that here in Nigeria? If we're able to refine our own products, then we will say we have independence as far as energy goes. Now, in power, this is somewhat different. You have to think about the entire value chain, the entire power value chain in Nigeria. Anything happens to gas production, it affects the production of power. And of course, the discos will not get power to sell. Anything happens to the transmission company of Nigeria's lines, guess what? The little power that they can will does not get to discos. There's a hiccup in the discos, you have a power grid fail. So, we need to take a holistic view at the entire power sector, all the way from generation of gas to distribution of electricity. The entire system, I keep saying this, and I've said it so many times, I sound like a broken record, even to myself. The entire value chain is broken. And until we start to look at the entire value chain as a system, we will not get this right. There are many interventions that are being made by the government. And I say the government is not your place to make these interventions. Step out of the way. Create regulations that will allow investors to bring in money, invest money, and make sure that they can get returns on the money that they invest. Because at the end of the day, people want to make a profit for the money they invest. That's the reality.
Let's talk about power generation now. For a country of over 200 million people, Nigeria has the capacity to generate 12,522 megawatts of electric power, but only able to dispense an average of 4,000 megawatts. What do you make of this?
Again, we have to look at the value chain to understand this. To start with, even saying that we can generate over 12,000 megawatts of power in this country, I think is a travesty. We should at least have an installed capacity of 50,000 megawatts. Then we can say we have a power sector. Now, of the 12,000 or thereabouts megawatts that we have in this country, installed capacity, we cannot generate all of it. Even if we do, we don't have the transmission lines to carry all the power. We can reliably transmit about 5,500 megawatts on TCN's current network. And the gas that we produce, we don't produce enough gas domestically, okay, to even generate up to the 12,000 megawatts that we're talking about. So today, I mean, in the past couple of days, I mean, we were producing about 2,000 megawatts for several different reasons. So for us, we need to start thinking, how can we have the system produce about 50,000 megawatts for a start? How can we reliably move this energy from the producers to where they're going to be distributed, when the energy will be distributed? This is the real conversation. And then how do we make sure that when this energy is sent out to different off-takers, that they can reliably pay for the energy? And this is not rocket science. It's been done in many different countries. My proposition is we create mini grids. Forget about the one large grid that we keep battling with that is very unstable. Any small fluctuation in the frequency of our grid collapses the system. You have an overload in one area, the system collapses. You have a voltage or a current spike anywhere, the system collapses. Our system does not work and will never work in its current configuration. We need to have mini grids around the entire country, what I call utilities. So you come to a particular area, someone should be able to produce energy there, distribute it within that area, and have people trading that energy within that area. And if we have all these mini utilities across the entire country and interconnect them with a grid, then we will start to see a stable grid in this country. If we don't do that, we're going to continue to have this conversation year in, year out, and it will never be solved, in spite of all the money that the government is spending.
Now, you've preferred a solution now because when the topic or the issue of Nigeria's epileptic power supply comes up, one begins to wonder if the government cannot kind of use the blueprint of other Western countries and replicate that in Nigeria. But why do you think a solution you've preferred now has not been attempted by the government?
Well, a very good roadmap was created back around 2010. Then under the Minister of Power then was Prof. Subatan Naji. If we had stuck to that roadmap, today we will see a grid that is becoming more stable. We'll see a system that is in private hands. But unfortunately, in our country, anytime you have a change in leadership, you see a change in policies. For us to start to see stability in this system, we should go back and take one of the roadmaps. We don't need any more investigations. We don't need any more conferences or any more experts telling us what to do. We already have a roadmap that's been set out. We just need to follow it through and stop with the flip-flopping of policies. Pick one, stick to it, and finish it. We need to have political courage. Whoever is the leader at the time, it doesn't matter. It's not a political issue. Whoever is the leader at the time should have political courage to see it through. Back in the days, it was said that we need to see a cost-reflective tariff in the country, and there was an uprising of sorts saying people cannot afford it. Well, now the tariff has been increased, about doubled more in some areas, and there hasn't been an uprising. But unfortunately, what we're seeing is people are paying higher. People are paying much more for the electricity, but they're not seeing the kilowatts coming into their homes. So what we need to do really is to pick that policy that was created back in 2010, or those policies that were created back in 2010, follow it through, irrespective of who's in power. And then at the same time, have a rollback of the stringent policies that we have today guiding the system, guiding the electricity industry in Nigeria, so that private companies that want to make investments can actually invest with confidence, knowing that whatever agreements that they go into, they will be respected, knowing that the rule of law will allow them to have those agreements respected, knowing that the rule of law will also prevent energy theft and all kinds of shenanigans being played in the sector. Okay, there are many models that we can copy around the world, but we need to have one that works for our own unique country, and it already exists.
There's so many issues with Nigeria's epileptic power supply, and some of the challenges such as inadequate gas supply, which of course we'll discuss right after this break. Energy expert Chukwu Eloka Ume, please be on standby, and Money Matters will return shortly after this break.
Hello, Alahaji. Right now I'm in Abuja. No. Hello, Adamu. Right now I'm in Kano. Yes. When I get back, I will just call you. Look, what is wrong with you? I'm talking on the phone and you are gesticulating and doing. What's wrong with you?
Daddy, where exactly are we as we speak?
Are you alright? This is Lagos.
Well, you just lied to someone that we're in Abuja.
Keep quiet. Who told you can tell an elderly person is lying?
Daddy, you just lied. And by lying, you're raising corrupt children for the future of Nigeria. That is corruption, not in my country. Corruption not in my country.
Welcome back. You're still watching Money Matters, and I've been talking to energy expert Chukwu Eloka Ume, and he has been discussing some of Nigeria's numerous electrical supply problems, which of course is inadequate gas supply, which the Minister of Power actually mentioned at the last FEC meeting, in trying to assure Nigerians that the federal government has basically found solutions to some of these problems. And it's interesting to know that Nigeria has a gas reserve of up to 600 trillion cubic feet. And it's more or less like we are flaring gas and we still have gas issues and all of this. Could you speak to this, please?
Yes, Nigeria has the world's 9th largest gas deposit. And I believe we need to be a gas producing country that happens to produce some oil along with the gas, not the other way around. Now, the government has finally come to this realization, and NNPC is trying to drive for a lot of gas production in the country, but it's too little, too slow. In 2019, we produced about 3 TCF, trillion cubic feet of gas. Out of that, only about 21% was used locally in Nigeria, domestically. Now, of that 21%, you can see that some was used for power, some were used for petrochemicals, for some for textiles, and so on and so forth. We need to see a higher number, a higher percentage being used right here in Nigeria to produce electricity. But if you're asking a gas producer to produce more and a gas transporter to transport more gas, you need to first of all have the infrastructure to transport that gas. You also need to have bankable off-takers that can buy the gas. If you're asking someone to spend millions of dollars to produce gas, process the gas, and then sell it, they need to be sure that the money that they spend to produce and process the gas will be paid back over time by the people buying the gas. Now, the people buying the gas in this case will be Gencos. Gencos need to be certain that when they produce electricity and sell to discos, they will be paid for the electricity that they produce. But what we're seeing today is not the case. You have today any on-grid IP that is producing electricity, their bills are being settled by NBET, the bulk electricity trading company. NBET was set up to last for about 5 years, and then when we have the market completely privatized, NBET will go away, and we'll have direct contracts between power producers and the distributors. That hasn't happened. Many years later, it still hasn't happened. So you can see this goes back again to the sector not being completely unbundled. If you want to see more gas being used in the country or produced and used within the country, you need to have more gas production. You need to have a proper gas grid. By gas grid, I mean a proper gas network of pipelines across the country. We should have pipelines spanning the different parts of the countries, specifically starting from where the gas produced and to the other parts of the country where gas is not produced. We should not be looking at this with ethnic eyes. We should be looking at it purely as business. That's not what we're doing today. We should also allow companies, private companies, to be able to build part of this infrastructure and have a system where they'll make their money back. So this is where you come to pricing, real pricing. And the pricing needs to be passed along the value chain. The government's role in this case is having the right economic foundation for these companies to do this kind of investments, and then allowing the companies to charge a price for their products that will reflect their investment. But then again, at the end of the chain, you have Nigerians who will end up buying the power that is produced with this gas that we're talking about. Nigerians need to be able to make a salary, need to be able to make enough income to pay for the power at the end of the day. We don't really have this today. Minimum wage is so abysmal that people can't really afford it.
And let's take another critical look at discos and Gencos. The federal government had recently announced plans to review licenses of these critical stakeholders, that is the discos and Gencos, over poor performance. What are the major challenges of these critical stakeholders?
So I think there's a model in the system. You know, when we did the unbundling back in 2013, there were very clear rules laid out in the unbundling. If a disco does not meet its stated or promised ATC and C losses, aggregated technical collection and commercial losses, within a certain period, I think it was 3 to 5 years, they would have their license either revoked or reviewed. That hasn't happened many years later. We ask ourselves why. There are many issues. Now, the government still owns 40% of the discos. How then can they enforce what needs to be done? The Gencos that were sold, some were not put in the right hands. The discos that were sold were also, in some cases, not put in the right hands. Again, we had part of the Nigerian problem come into play here. I think that's a topic for another day. So if we want to see these companies, these investors being held accountable, you need to put the assets that they bought completely in their hands. We also need to see that the umpire in this case is impartial, so that they can actually administer the rules that were set to guide the game. But unfortunately in Nigeria, as you know, the goalpost will always continue to shift. for many reasons. Again, that's a conversation for another day. And if some people don't know it already, about 40% of the on-grid IPPs in Nigeria today belongs to the government. And the government is still turning around to build more Gencos. So you wonder, we're trying to privatize, but the government is still building more assets that it holds. So so it's really more.
Could you give a response to that? Why do you think the government is holding on to this sector it had promised to privatize?
I I don't think I don't think I'm I don't think I'm in the right place to
All right. I understand.
But I think it's the wrong thing.
There's a very critical part of this discussion. The NERC, that's Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, recently announced that power subsidy at about 600 billion naira has been stopped by the federal government. Now, the situation is, while we have which of course means a tariff hike. So while we have a tariff hike on one hand, we also have a collapse of the national grid. So could you help us reconcile this situation? Because I mean, we have a hike in price of diesel. We have other situation in our hands. So what exactly is going on, really?
The hike in the tariff was done in order to have the tariff be cost reflective. Cost reflective meaning that if it costs a Genco 30 naira to produce energy, 30 naira a kilowatt hour to produce energy, they should make a profit. So I guess they should sell their power at about 35 naira or so to make a profit. Then the power goes to the TCN. TCN also wants to make a profit. So by the time the power gets to the disco, the price will be about 45 naira per kilowatt hour. And of course, the Genco needs to pay the person that sold the gas to it. So that price is already built in. But by the time the disco gets the power to the end user, they will also add their own charge for moving the power from the grid to the homes or to the factories or whatever. So there's a price that the power should be when it gets to the people. And of course, the disco needs to make a profit. So cost reflective really means that all the costs that it takes to produce the power and get it to the end user has been built in, plus some margin for profit. That's the right thing to do. Removing the subsidy means that the government is not putting any more money to cover some of these costs for the people in the value chain of this power sector. And it's okay, it's the right thing to do. However, the challenge that we're seeing today is the people are still not seeing the electricity that they're supposed to pay for. In some cases, people that have prepaid meters, you only pay for what you get, what you use. People that are still being have their energy being estimated, sometimes pay for energy they actually don't get. At the end of the day, with all these interventions, with the subsidy being removed, with the tariff being raised, the investors are supposed to have the confidence, and their financial models should actually start working to the point that they can see that whatever money that they put in, that they invest, would actually result in a return that covers their costs and also puts some profit in their pockets. This is what is supposed to happen. However, the changing economic scenario in the country makes this very tough. A lot of these companies borrow money in dollars to invest in the power sector, but their return comes in naira. As the naira is being devalued, as the exchange rate is going very high, it means that the money that these people make cannot translate into enough naira to buy dollars to pay their loans back. So you see that we are in a catch-22 situation. Tariff is raised, but the money is not enough for these investors to make enough money to buy dollar and pay their loans back. So we're in a never-ending loop. That's the real situation. And the person that gets to suffer at the end of the day is the Nigerian person, the Nigerian citizen, or the Nigerian company. That's the real situation that we're dealing with.
These are some of the issues that we hope the government looks into to have an improved power sector. But Chukwu Eloka Ume, energy expert, thank you very much for your contribution on the program. I need to wrap on the program. Many thanks for watching. I am Folashade Ogrinde. See you next time.